I can check in the morning. It gives me a reason to wake up early. I'm on a much better routine right now where I've been sleeping earlier and waking up earlier. And then at 4:30, I'm done for the day. Crypto mining is something that I'm just starting to dabble into and experiment. And that's an active business as well. It does take I'm looking to hire a maintenance person. I'm looking at potentially building a little data center. Right now I have a tiny little beta project going on in my basement. It's not at all a data center. It's just like me just dabbling. Appreciation is really the reason that I haven't sold yet, is because I think that we haven't hit the top yet. Though I'm not actively buying.
2016 Mike would be just spinning in his grave right now, I feel like, hearing that. What is up, YouTube? Matt McKeever here, and on today's video I catch up with Mike Rosehart. Now, it's probably been about, I think, a year and a half, it could even be 2 years since we last had Mike on the channel. But just a quick reminder, Mike is Canada's youngest retiree. He quit the rat race at, I think, age 24 because of his real estate portfolio. We've done a bunch of YouTube videos together in the past. Originally, it was just me constantly nagging him that convinced him to start his YouTube channel. So looking forward to just catching up, finding out, has Mike sold all his real estate? Is he buying all the real estate? Is he going all into crypto? We discuss all that and more in today's video. What is up, YouTube? Matt McKeever here. We've got Mike Rosehart back on the channel. It's probably been a while since we had Mike. I'm going to guess it was pre-COVID. I don't honestly even really remember, but probably at least a year. So first of all, how are you doing, Mike?
Good. Thanks for having me back on the channel. Life's been good, man. It's a blessed investing atmosphere the last year. So I'm feeling very good when it comes to my finances.
Awesome. And every time you're on, you've either sold everything or bought everything. I forget whether last time you had sold everything or bought everything, but let's start with real estate. Where do things stand right now?
Yeah, so it depends on the mood that I'm in, right? So sometimes I'll look at my portfolio and I'm like, I have a terrible portfolio. Like, it can go for such a good price on the MLS. Like, what am I doing dealing with all these stresses? I'm just going to sell it off. And then other days I wake up and I'm like, wow, things are appreciating like crazy. Look what I missed out on. I should keep holding. I have good properties. They have good bones, whatever. So it depends on like whether it's student turnover season. Depends on when you get me, actually, pretty much. But yeah, so right now I've got in my personal, I think 12 properties in my personal name still. Or I guess that's more than I had before. And then about 10 or so in the corpse. I think I'd have to count. I don't know. Something like 20.
Are they still like smaller multifamilies, single family student rentals? What are we kind of looking at?
Pretty much everything is duplex or larger. There's one single family that I have that I just rent out to a family plus utilities, and I'm holding that one because the long-term appreciation is really, really good on it. And I acquired it it was like 1% rule when I acquired it. It's not now. Like, I'm sure I could sell it for like 0.5% rule. So I know by my own, admission, I've often said, if I wouldn't buy it today, why am I still holding it? In this case, mostly tax consequences of selling. I have to plan that out and think it through. And I have a good tenant there, and it's zero headache at all. So a little bit of cash flow I make, I know it's not a good enough return probably to justify continuing to hold it. But yeah, mostly like I have a 6-plex that we acquired, 4-plex, triplexes, some student rental stuff, some Airbnb stuff, a mix.
And then is that the only type of real estate you're doing right now, is buy and hold? Are you doing any flips? Are you doing rent owns? Anything else going on?
Yeah, I'm doing a couple of flips right now in Sarnia. Actually got a third one just under contract. So doing a little bit of flipping there. I'm not actively looking to do any deals for myself anymore. I only do deals for other people. So this one was my stepbrother. We grew up together, and he's a contractor now, and he was looking to get into real estate. And I'm like, I have a connection to off-market deals, and I'll provide the financing capital and lean in where I can, and I'll be more of the high-level passive partner. And that has been a great partnership so far. So that's where I maybe might do a couple more flips, and I could see there being opportunities to do flips with partners where there's an active partner on the ground doing all the work, right? And you got to be careful doing that too, right? If you take on those partnerships, you could partner with the wrong person. It could take a year, 2 years to do the flip, and then the value that person brought as the active partner is nothing, right? So it depends on if you can find good partners, and it really just depends on where I'm at in my situation. But right now, there's a few flips that are going, and they're going well. I'm really big into options trading and stock investing right now. That's been the primary focus of my efforts, and a little bit into crypto dabbling, a little bit into a couple other little businesses that I have going. But yeah, primarily I still have quite a few buy and holds that make sense. And every year I sell a couple off. I have always been of the position that everything I have is for sale for the right price. And so if I can get a good price on a property, or let's say a property turns over and we have to freshly renovate it, I'm like, do I want to throw students back in that property and have it destroyed again? Or does it make sense to maybe take some gains off the table? So I look at every deal, separately. And so I'm not necessarily all out of real estate or all in real estate right now. I think my approach right now is that the market is extremely, I don't want to say overvalued, because look at Vancouver 10 years ago, right? And people said there that houses couldn't pass $1 million, and now a house there is 2-3 million, right? So I don't know. My approach right now with real estate is that I think government's printing a lot of money. I think people are really bullish. There's a big supply and demand issue. So I'm not ready to get rid of my portfolio just yet, because I don't think it's quite at the top. At the same time, I know that at market value, the cap rates are very bad and the cash flow is very low, and the return on investment is much lower in real estate than other areas, right? Like, I'll still buy a property if it's under market value, because that's an instant lift. That's a great return on investment. It's the holding piece that doesn't really make any sense. Even if you're 4-to-1 levered, like a 15% return, that doesn't get me excited anymore, especially for the stress and the risk of owning real estate. So appreciation is really the reason that I haven't sold yet, is because I think that we haven't hit the top yet. Though I'm not actively buying.
2016 Mike would be just spinning in his grave right now. I feel like hearing that. I'm holding for appreciation, but I totally actually understand where you're coming from. And I guess, so you touched upon it, but before I even kind of explored the idea of the stock options or crypto and other things, I think last time we were chatting as well, you had decided to kind of step back from some of the businesses and stuff, and had sold off a business, winding down maybe some other like contract oriented business and stuff like that. Where does that all stand? Do you have any like active businesses, employees, stuff like that going on right now that you're spending time on?
A little bit, like just in-house for myself and my own portfolio and like a couple of friends. I am still a realtor. Been doing that for a couple of years. So I will occasionally, mostly referral stuff to my partner on that side. So there's a little bit there. I don't have a lot of staff, and then I'm so thankful. The contracting and the property management business that I started with a partner, he ended up, moving in that, and so the business kind of imploded on itself, and we sort of closed it down. I'm glad, because I was so stressed having a dozen people that were texting me and calling me, and I had to act like a general manager, right? And I did not enjoy that role. For no amount of money would I want to go back into that. For $1 million a year, I wouldn't go back into that business, just for my mental sanity. I have 3 kids now.
I've had businesses like that too, definitely, where you're like, nope, there's no amount.
Exactly, right? And like my lifestyle right now is more focused on, like, family is one of the bigger things that I'm obsessed about, right? Like I have an awesome dog and 3 girls and my wife to keep happy. And that feels like a business in and of itself, right? Just keeping the family life alive. So that is a big focus on my day-to-day, is like my kids, everything about my kids right now, right? But yeah, options trading has been an active business that I'm in right now. I need to hire someone probably for that business. I think that one of the things I love about it is that active options trading qualifies for the 12% small business deduction. And so that's much better than, say, passive holding, where you're treated much. One of my 4 buckets, I think the last time we talked, maybe a year and a half ago, I was exploring the 4 buckets, right? So like stocks, real estate, I had lending on there, and I had buying private businesses, right? Or like owning, flipping, something to do with private businesses. And I think that lending is probably one that I'm phasing out, because I think lending, the tax treatment is not preferred. 51% or 54% tax on lending. It's very hard to make it active. Whereas I could shift those funds and just do options trading and simulate a similar amount of more cash flow with better liquidity and better control, where I have stop losses set up where I can't really lose money. It's very, very easy to become liquid whenever I want. And I can generate 2-3% a month relatively consistently with like strangles and collars and things like that. So I find that business to be much more attractive than lending. So I've phased out the idea that lending is a great way to, sort of build passive income in retirement. I spend 10 minutes on my phone trading in the morning, and maybe another couple minutes at lunch. I often spend hours in the later afternoon hours because I'm watching everything, but you don't have to spend that kind of time. And so, yeah, I like that business. I think it's It's a great business to be in. Crypto mining is something that I'm just starting to dabble into with an experiment, and that's an active business as well. It does take I'm looking to hire a maintenance person. I'm looking at potentially building a little data center. Right now, I have a tiny little beta project going on in my basement. It's not at all a data center. It's just like me just dabbling. Like I bought some equipment, work with a friend to put it together, and I've been testing a little bit of mining. And the ROI is very good, like 150% annualized. And the downside is like you sell your equipment to gamers at maybe a 20% discount, right? If you run the machines nice and cool and you keep a good systems in place to run your equipment, then after a year or two, it holds most of its value. So there's almost no downside and then a ton of upside with mining. And then if mining if crypto continues to bull rush like it has, there's huge profitability there too, right? I think that that's something, and I've been watching a little bit on your channel. I hadn't caught up with you in a while, so I just watched a couple of your videos just to see what you're up to, right? Mm-hmm. And I watched your one video there on crypto, and I share a lot of the same sentiment. It's interesting because my position has done a 180 from where it was in 2016, 2017 related to crypto. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts too on what your thoughts are on crypto.
Yeah, I'll touch upon mine, and then I've got a follow-up question for you on all this. So yeah, for me, blockchain was always fascinating. So really 2017, 2018 is when I started to get into it. End of 2017, I think, is when we started a meetup group here in London about it. And I guess I was always just waiting for a real vote of confidence from the general market. And honestly, I should have been paying more attention because Michael Saylor should have been the vote of confidence for me, but I wasn't paying enough attention. So honestly, it was Elon Musk and Tesla that was the real signal that I was like, okay, yep, I need to like double back and look into this. And then when I doubled back, at least back in 2017, I don't remember people talking about Lightning and all that. And so when I came back, I found it to be such a more robust ecosystem. And even like some of the arguments have evolved. The arguments that Bitcoin bulls were making back in 2017 and 2018, I don't think were as strong as they were in 2020 and 2021. And so for me, it was really just, between the evolution of their arguments, between some of the signals from major corporations, and then finally also like the world, I guess, what's going on in the world also was a signal to me. So seeing the wild amount of debt that's being printed, right? The wild amount of money that's just being issued. I've shared multiple times on my channel, but like the Bank of Canada's assets, right? Like that shit is very concerning for me when it's just like chart just goes like, people are concerned about Bitcoin's price going up. Look at the Bank of Canada's assets, right? Like what they're doing. It's just literally at times like a vertical line just straight up. And again, I'm sure there are versions of reality where we could fight our way out of the corner that we backed ourselves into. But for the level of confidence I have in government, I don't see it. And so that's why, I've definitely shift my personal allocations and things of that nature. And that kind of circles back to the question I wanted to ask you, Mike, which is how do you allocate your time and capital? And are they equal? Like, do you notice, oh, I'm spending 10% of my capital and time on crypto? Is it, do you front load a lot of time first before capital or vice versa? I guess, how do you decide to get into options and crypto at the same time?
For me, it was sometime in the fall, I got into private banking, and I just had a really bad experience at the bank where like they held a draft for like it was a wire. They held a wire into my account, and just ridiculous. It was a draft as well, but like just dealing with the branch manager that was just not great.
Yeah.
And they ended up referring, I was like, I'm closing all my bank accounts. I'm literally done. And they're like, no, please don't do that. So they sent me over to private banking, and I had a conversation there. And then through that conversation, realized that you can lever up at below prime against equities. And I'm like, whoa, I knew you could do like margin trading with like Questrade. I'd done it back when I was like 18 years old, right? At like 8, 9, 10% interest, terrible loan to value percentages, but like sometimes you go 2 to 1, right? And then I find out you get these lines of credits on dividend producing blue chip stuff that is at prime minus. And I'm like, wow, that's really I didn't know I could buy Enbridge with 30% down. I didn't realize that $100,000 buys you $330,000 in stock. And when it's a 7% dividend yield, that's like buying a 7 cap property at 30% down with a really cheap cost to finance it and zero work. Like it's not a business, it's really passive. And to get those kinds of returns, I'm like, I can't get that in lending. So that for me was a big, like, I didn't realize that was actually a thing. And then I found out Interactive Brokers is one of the best platforms for borrowing, because you can borrow at prime minus 1.5%. So 0.5%, like 0.5% you can borrow at, like, it's banker's acceptance with no fee. So I don't know how they're able to do that. I guess it's on trading fees when I looked into their financials, but it looks to me that, like, that is a paradigm shift in my thinking, where before I was like, real estate is attractive because of leverage. That's why I like real estate. Like, I didn't want to buy real estate in cash. No interest in getting a 6-7% return. I didn't typically buy anything based on appreciation. It was always cash flow. And I'm like, if I can create that same amount of cash flow with less capital using cheaper debt on the equity side, that's an interesting proposition for me. And then I could use options to basically protect any downside. So if the companies I'm investing in, well diversified, 50 different positions, it's possible that management isn't good. And so you could use you sell cover calls, use the premium for that to pay for puts. So if they are wrong and it's a black swan event, you get a huge payout and you just double down on your position. So I just kind of opening my eyes up to all of that. And I was like, wow, there are ways to develop competitive advantages. Most people don't understand derivatives. I think like probably 99% of stock investors in Canada don't use any derivatives, don't use any options trading at all. So there's this huge untapped, I think it's like in the early stages of, capitalizing on volatility, capitalizing on the fact that not a lot of people are doing it, and the fact that institutions can't do it because there's not enough liquidity. So if you had, $1 billion to invest, a fund couldn't do what I'm doing because they have so much capital to deploy. So it's sort of a sweet little, it's like in London, Ontario, where I was like, there's no institutions here and I could buy property super cheap and get great cash flow. It felt a lot like that. And the crypto space in the same way, you can build these rigs and you can mine cryptocurrency with limited downside and a ton of upside because there's not enough people doing it and they understand it. They want to take that risk. And so that for me was a paradigm shift where I'm like, I'm sort of in retirement mode, right? So I'm spending time with my family. That's at least half of my time goes to like my girls, especially recently with my newest third born. I was very focused on like helping my wife through that process, right? And my dad is going through, divorce. So he was staying with us. And so I've had some family things that have consumed a lot of my time. You're asking about how I lay out my time, probably a lot less to business than maybe I should. But it's my own call. And I think for right now, I'm sacrificing some potential growth in order to, and some potential sleep in order to focus on the family. And so that's been a focus. But yeah, I mean, I am still allocating some time to, real estate here and there. I'm picking up deals. And so I have a passion for that, right? It's my hobby. Like I go on MLS and I just look, right? Or, I open up my phone to Interactive Brokers, or I open up my finance app and I look at the positions that I'm trading in. And for me, that's the hobby for the day. Like I actually treat that like a video game, more or less. And so that's kind of what I'm doing for fun. Like I actually replaced gaming with trading. And it's just honestly, I got a little community that I talk in with people who are doing it too. And I like that sense of community that I have doing it. And it's kind of cool. It's like a little village where I'm doing it. And there's no stress in the same way that there is in other businesses where I had employees and I had overhead and I had, or in real estate where you have tenants and contractors, and dealing with tenants and contractors can be some of the worst clients to deal with, right? Because I guess clients or employees, stakeholders, whatever you want to call it, like it can be a very different experience, right? And it's hard to disconnect, where the trading bell rings at 9:30 in the morning. So I can check in the morning, gives me a reason to wake up early. I'm on a much better routine right now where I've been sleeping earlier and waking up earlier. And then at 4:30, I'm done for the day, right? I don't have to do anything. There's no evening calls. There's no, just a lifestyle shift and a better return on capital. For me right now, my net worth has grown so much because of real estate primarily, but other businesses I've been involved in. I'm at a point now where if I just grow my net worth, the journey to 250 million net worth is foreseeable in my life, right? If I just stay on a course of making some smart investment decisions. So I'm less concerned about working and building businesses and more about just return on my capital being over a certain hurdle rate.
Awesome. Yeah, really appreciate you sharing that perspective. And I guess the last thing I maybe want to touch upon just on this catch up was, and only if you want to explore it, but like recently you bought a new property that seems like it's maybe going to be, if not your forever home, or forever for a while sort of home. So do you want to touch upon that at all? Or was there any real shift in perspective there? Or was it just need a bit more space?
There's a number of things that came together. That's my mansion, right? Like this is it's my estate. It's in a beautiful area, walking distance to tons of boutiques and shops. And I like that I can walk to some of my favorite food places. And I think that the long-term vision, the next not even long-term, medium-term vision in 2 to 5 years around that property is huge. Like I'm hugely bullish on the area. And so just like the 1.3 acres of land that I bought, I felt like was worth, I almost got the house for free, I feel like. So it was hard to pass the opportunity up because I think it was such a good opportunity. But it currently has a five-car garage, 6,500 square feet. It has the potential to be a 10-bed, 9-bath with a carriage house and with a pool and pool house and a separate 2-story nanny suite, so to speak. So it has a lot of potential. The house hack, it fits my lifestyle perfectly. It's nice not having neighbors beside me and behind me. It's nice to have good views and just like I want to have gates for both the driveways. It's got like a circular driveway, and I want to have gates so that like people can't just drive up and harass me being a public figure. I like to have that privacy. So for me, it's a lifestyle upgrade in a bunch of ways. My wife's super excited about it because it's a bit of land where we can spread out. Space, and so it's a big upgrade for the kids, and it made a lot of sense, I think, from that perspective. And then the cost was just so great. I think by the time I sell this house, and I haven't listed this house yet, I'm still riding the appreciation wave to cash my house out and hopefully just trade. I might be able to trade my house for that one, almost the same cost.
Crazy.
And so to me, like, full disclosure, I got it for 1.329. Anyone could look that up as a realtor. So like, I'm not afraid to share that, which is extremely affordable for what it is. And I think the ARV is probably, I think 5 years from now, let's say, when I've done everything I want to do, I'm going to put an 8-car garage, connect it, just do it properly, do some nice work to the property to really make it an estate, like a basketball court, a pool, all the things you'd want in like a higher end estate. I think probably worth $3 million. So I think there's a huge lift potential there if the market continues the way it is going and the area develops the way I think it's going to develop. And it's walking distance to my daughter's school. So we're getting a lot closer to her school while still getting more of that country feel. So just everything worked out. It was the perfect timing. I looked at the property 6 months ago and I talked to them a little bit, and I was like, it just doesn't make sense. But it started to make sense, and we sniped it up. And I'm really happy that we're getting to make this shift. And if we can do it, I like to joke that my first house is paid for this house, because every house I've moved, it's been a capital gains free. And over the last 10 years, I've had 4 or 5, every couple of years I move. So every 2 years typically it doesn't plan that way. It just happens. Like, we had our first, we're like, we're not going to have any more kids. And we had a second kid. Then we get a dog. Like, we need more space. So every time my life just keeps evolving in different ways, and people come into my life. Like Jonas, as an example, is part of the family now, right? And so we have to, when I'm buying a place, I'm thinking for those people too. And, my family that's now maybe going to live with us. So there's a whole bunch of different evolving factors. But yeah, it was a great investment decision, great lifestyle decision, and a little bit of extra cost I can easily make up for with the amount of extra passive income I've been earning as a result of partly luck, partly good decisions.
Awesome. Yeah, really appreciate that, Mike. And then for anyone that maybe they've never seen us catch up before on one of these calls, you've still got your social media. You're still occasionally putting some content out there, or at least going live every now and then.
Yeah, I go live every Wednesday, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on my YouTube channel. Just type in my name, Mike, last name Rosehart, Roschart. Instagram, it's at Mike Rosehart. Super simple. Facebook, my name as well, if you want to connect on there. Yeah.
Sweet. Thanks, Mike. Really appreciate you just kind of breaking down what's happened last year and a half. It's always interesting to hear what's going on in your world.
It's hard to, it's hard to cover it all. I'm sure I've missed a lot, but yeah, I mean, life's been good, and I can't complain. My net worth's been growing leaps and bounds, and lifestyle's been improving over time. So they say that more money doesn't make you happier, but I think more cash flow definitely gives you more options and more flexibility to really take those passion projects on and really invest in those things that, you wouldn't have before. Like I wouldn't touch crypto if I was like barely FIRE, right? Whereas now I can throw a little bit of money aside and touch those sort of high growth projects.
Yeah, love it. And if you want to hear more about Mike Rosehart or his backstory, or really just dive into how he became Mike Rosehart, he's actually been a guest on my new podcast, Problems and Profits.
On this episode of Problems or Profits, we've got Mike Rosehart, Canada's youngest retiree, 24 years old.
For the problems, right? So you can get to the profits.
Problems are what? Problems or profits!
So we'll throw a link in the video description down below. Really encourage you to jump over, check it out, hear more about Mike's backstory and just some of the struggles that he's been able to turn into profits.